Welcome everybody to SPRITE Lunch and Learn series. For those of you who are new to SPRITE, I'm Professor Stacey Conchi based at Lancaster University and one of the co-conveners of the network. Just by way of a very brief overview of what we do, we are an EPSRC funded network of over 1,000 members. Most of our members are from the UK, but we do have those from further afield. And our community works in the field of digital tips. We do work closely with other funded networks, with government regulators and businesses of different sizes. And we do engage in a range of activities, including funding research to others, commissioning research out, and also carrying out our own work internally. And we also do a number of knowledge exchange and mobilisation events. In terms of the Lunch and Learn talks, today is obviously part of that series. It's a fantastic way for you to discover latest developments in the world of tips. They are short TED type talks. So we have up to 20-minute presentation, and then we have around 10 minutes for Q&A, time dependent. We do have a series, so they are always run the third Wednesday of every month with different speakers. And in terms of those that we have upcoming, you will see on the slides here, I won't read them. But of most importance today is the speaker that we have, and I am delighted to invite Kovila to give us a presentation on privacy enhancing technologies. So Kovila is a lecturer in computer science at King's College London, and her research is at the intersection of privacy, security, AI and human-computer interaction. And Kovila has a keen interest in disadvantaged, vulnerable and marginalised user communities. And I am personally super excited to hear some of the research insights that Kovila will share with us today. Before I hand over the screen, just to say very briefly, a recording of the talk will be made available on our YouTube channel, but any questions that people ask at the end will not be recorded and will not feature on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to stop speaking, hand over the screen to Kovila, and I will come back on around 20-minute points to take any questions that we may have.
Thank you very much for the invite to give a talk from SPRITE. So today I'm going to speak with you about usage patterns in privacy enhancing technologies. So I will share a little bit about the context and motivation for this work. And then I will go through a series of studies that I've designed and conducted. And then look through the results and the implications of this work. So what does this work mean for further research or for stakeholders? So you may have heard of this term called online harms, and a few years ago, the UK government drew up an online harms white paper detailing the scale and extent of harms online. And the recommendations of that white paper is for researchers, academics, and stakeholders to work towards mitigating online harms without inhibiting technological innovation. That's often a tricky balance to reach. And the other goal that they had was to see how to empower citizens with awareness, usage, and integration of pets in their real life, in their everyday life. And so you might be wondering, what is a pet or pets? What are privacy-enhancing technologies? So the definition I use in my research and the paper is quite broad, but as you will see later, there are different types and specific pets. So I use the definition, a broad range of technologies designed for supporting privacy and data protection. So this research is centered and grounded within user-centered privacy. And previous research has already shown us the various and many factors that impact the use of privacy-enhancing technologies across different contexts of use or protection. Context of use may be social media or mobile usage or health apps, for example. And so the different factors that have been named in previous research through analysis is gender, education, internet experience, skills, knowledge of how to protect oneself. So a little bit connected to skills here, and whether people are able to actually use the privacy enhanced technologies or they are just unable to use it because it just doesn't work for them. The awareness of risk. So being aware of risk means that people will then probably take action in the future, or there might be some barriers in between that stop them from taking action to protect themselves, even though they are aware of risk or they perceive risk to be critical. And so the other factors included awareness of privacy technologies themselves, whether they exist, what they are for, their perceived need to act to protect themselves, to take an action, a protective action in a way, their perceived usefulness of the privacy technologies, and how is it to use. Other aspects that have been named or factors named in research before include the usability, how usable, how easy to use, or how is the interaction flow easy to use in a sense of these privacy technologies, and how does social influence impact people when they are interacting with privacy technologies or wanting to protect themselves online. So whether the people in their entourage or their circle of friends and family also use similar technologies or not. So the overall aim of this research, as I've talked a little bit about before, is we wanted to do a broad, large-scale investigation. We wanted to focus on different countries who have a little bit similar kind of internet usage, because why we wanted to look across different countries on the aspect of how people use privacy technologies is because previous research has seen that there may be different privacy concerns or behavior patterns or how people value their personal information across different countries. So here we use the demarcating factor here between these different countries. We call it national culture, which is termed as a collective mindset, which distinguishes members of one country from another in the way that people act, and is embedded into how they feel, they think, feel, act, etc. All of these things that determine their national culture. And so the main research questions for this whole set of free studies were very simply, what privacy methods or privacy enhancing technologies do internet users employ to protect their privacy, basically online? And how do users perceive the use of these privacy technologies? So in studies 1 and 2, we thought that, or we assumed that individuals may engage with their privacy via different habitual patterns or have different patterns of actions or collections of methods or tools that they habitually kind of gravitate towards or want to use. And whereas other technologies that they don't even consider for certain reason. So we wanted to look at what patterns emerge in individuals' privacy methods usage and preference, and how similar are usage patterns across different types or categories of privacy methods. So I want to say also here that if you've looked into privacy literature or you know a bit about that, you will see that there are taxonomies in privacy literature or typologies or categories of privacy methods or technologies where the differentiation or the categorizing factor is not based on how people use it or use them, but based on the technology or the design aspect, so the security principle of the technology behind those privacy enhanced technologies or the privacy principles behind them. That's how the categorization is usually done in literature. And so this is the first research that's actually creating those categorizations from the usage behavior of people themselves. And also we thought that adoption of privacy technologies may not follow a common pattern across different countries, and that's why I wanted to look at how they differ or how they are similar, those different patterns. So for the first two studies, we started we had a systematic approach, but each of those steps had like a strong justification for why we did it that way and how it kind of fed into the other. So in study one, it was mainly an open-ended method preference question where we basically asked people to just name or list 3 to 5 privacy tools or methods that they have employed online before. And so from this sample of the 3 countries with the sample size n equal written on the slide at the bottom, we compiled a list of 43 methods, including privacy technologies and non-privacy enhanced technologies, so non-tech. But what that means here, they are behavioral privacy actions. They are not using the technologies designed to protect oneself. We will come to what that means in a minute. So, and then this list of 43 privacy methods and tech fed into the second study where we specifically asked people to rate or to select and rate the method and tools they have used very often versus those they have never used at all. They have not used at all or very rarely used. So we went with a much larger sample here across the 3 countries because we were trying to generalize across those samples. And the data collection fed into an analysis where we aimed to categorize and classify our usage patterns and to visualize what's happening. And so here for the 43, the list of 43 methods and technologies that came up from our participants. So as you can see in the second column, I categorize the privacy feature or the privacy aspect being provided by that technology, whether it's anonymity or browsing history or communication filtering, or whether it's to prevent leaking or tracking or stealing of data. And then how were these technologies designed? On the top of the screen, you see the design tag, whether it's built-in, standalone technology or non. So the non-technology means all those behavioral patterns, so not store information. It's a behavioral choice, faking information online, or deciding not to use Facebook, or saying, I'm not going to engage online, I'm going to be careful. This is not specifically using protective technology to protect privacy, but making behavioral decisions and behavioral actions. So what did the cluster map tell us? Essentially, this cluster map kind of shows. So this cluster map, the way you interpret it, you look at how close the different dots are to each other. The dots pertain to the privacy methods or technologies. So the closer they are more likely to have the same usage profile, in a sense. And then the red cluster points to the most used methods or technologies, whereas the green cluster are the somewhat least used or least named as being used methods and technologies. So if we look a little bit at the red cluster, you will see something as limit SNS, so limit social network use, using PayPal, having only a few email addresses, clearing cookies, opting out, no location tracking. Whereas in the green cluster, on the far left, you will see Tor, Ghostery, Erasery, and then you will see things like Kaspersky or DuckDuckGo and NoScript, etc. So we fed the data into something called a correspondence analysis after the cluster mapping because we wanted to see the relationship between the different countries and the pattern of how people were using those technologies and or methods. So the way to interpret this map is to compare which of the blue dots, so the methods and technologies, which of the blue dots are closest to the UK red indicator on the map versus the US versus DE here pointing to Germany. So in the UK, we had more people, or people more likely saying that they're going to clear their history as a way to protect themselves. They're not going to save their password. They're going to be checking if the website looks suspicious. They are going to limit sharing. People from the US said they're going to clear cookies more, not store private information online, use privacy setting, use anti-spyware, use encryption, ad blocker. People in Germany said they use most likely to use IP hider, faking information, VPN, pseudonym, anonymous profile, anti-tracking, etc. So this gives us a sense of how participants or the population across 3 countries behave with regards to privacy protection. What's interesting here in this table of the most used methods or technologies are the blue highlighted text. So the blue highlighted text are the behavioral or non-technology methods, basically. And there are a little bit of some of them repeating across the 3 countries, such as limit sharing, no newsletter. But for the UK, for example, and the United States, website care, so being careful about whether the website looks suspicious or whether they'll give information to it before engaging with the website was the most used protective approach, privacy protective approach. And then for the UK population or sample, it was limiting their sharing before engaging with any technology. Whereas our participants from Germany, the first most used method was blocking ads, so using ad blockers. All right, so going on into the third study now that we have seen the patterns emerging or the categories emerging from usage of privacy-enhanced technologies, we wanted to look at how did participants or how do people perceive privacy technologies or methods that were in the most used group, so the red cluster on the map, versus those that were in the least used group, that is the red cluster. Oh, sorry. So the most used group, the red cluster, versus the least used group in the green cluster. So the most used group, we called it list A as advanced privacy enhancing technologies, whereas the least used group as advanced technologies, whereas the other technologies list B were the most used group. So for this survey, we asked participants demographic details. We asked them questions to elicit their perceived competency, how they felt, how they self-assessed themselves about their ability to protect their privacy online. And then we gave them these 2 lists and asked them to discuss which of those 2 lists of privacy technologies and methods they are more likely to use, and to share a little bit of the reasoning and support needed that they felt they need to be able to use those technologies. We also gathered certain types of perception of use for the 2 lists, whether they were aware of those technologies in the first place to be able to use it, whether they perceive it was useful, how easy was it for them to use, whether they intended to use it in the future, and how does their social circle influence those perceptions. And so here again, with a similar cross-country comparison, we had a slightly larger sample for UK participants. So the questionnaire items that we use here, as you can have a look in the paper, called the same title as this talk. all the questionnaire items are provided in the paper, and we checked the validity of those, the reliability and validity of those items as well in the paper. So here is just presenting the two lists. List A, which was advanced privacy technologies in the least used cluster, and the other pets. And what kind of results did we get from our participants? At least 17 of them said that they mostly use advanced pets, whereas most of the other participants said they use the ones in the other pets category, which were the most used ones. There was no difference in perceived competency to protect oneself online. So that was not a difference, but there was difference in people's awareness of the different lists, of their perceived usefulness, of how they perceive the tools or methods were easy to use. They're wanting to use them in the future. As you can see, most of those are for the simple privacy technologies and methods. And in terms of their reasoning, we gathered a list of reasons why they would go towards a particular list or type or category of privacy technologies. And it was really interesting to see a mixture of those different reasonings across effectiveness, awareness, skills they thought they needed, usability, and even cost, and whether they thought privacy was needed in the first place. And the support needed as well was interesting. If privacy was a need, they will find a way or support to do it. Information or training was important for them. And the fact that whether people in their circle would be using similar technologies was also important. So there's social influence.
2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will wrap up. And so to summarize, 29% of our participants referred to their unawareness of advanced privacy technologies. They were unfamiliar with them, or they knew only one item in the list, and no surprise there, the one item they knew was VPN. Some of them didn't know the methods in the other list even existed, and they have probably all only ever used VPNs. And as you will see, I think, in the next slide and the last slide later, the VPN wasn't even used to protect with a privacy protection goal in mind, but for some other reasons. Summary of qualitative results here in terms of the reasons actually given by participants and support that they need. So to summarize, they say that they don't know the privacy technologies from the advanced list and therefore don't use them, so they are not aware, but yet they perceive those technologies to be unusable, costly, and untrustworthy. They would likely use those advanced specs in the future, or be encouraged to use if they thought it was easy to use or configure, knew what they were and what to do with them, had bigger privacy needs, so people don't think they need privacy, some of them, and if they didn't perceive them to be costly. And so we also found that 35 participants use both both categories of technologies, but they would mostly use the simple pets, so the other pets. And interesting, some of the quotes here, some people would say things in the simple list are the stuff that everybody would use. For example, the participants from Germany. List B, the simple pets are pretty standard stuff, so I use that. And like here, we use VPN, but not for privacy protection, but to block my geolocation, etc. And interestingly, this I thought was super interesting. The way we named our privacy technologies might not make any sense to people in terms of whether they should and how they could use those privacy technologies. So in terms of, to summarize our results and what that means for the future, there were general beliefs across our participants that we gathered in terms of the naming of those technologies and how they are presented in terms of the ease of use, in terms of whether they would be able to use them, whether they are effective for privacy. So they had beliefs around those which act as obstacle to adoption. So the classification or cluster map that we produce was novel in itself in privacy research, and it can be used in the future as a way to categorize different behavior patterns or technology types or features, rather than to use a categorization based on protection or design. The transition across uh, tr the transition across the different clusters in the cluster map can be a way or a lens for designers, educators, or pet promoters to think about, can be used as a way for them to think about how do we get people to those technologies that they consider more complex? What do we need to do to support them based on the reasoning and the support needed they gave us? And I think we need to reflect a little bit on those cross-national differences, especially what it means for us in the UK. The other contribution of this research was it provided a pretty rigorous and reusable, reproducible methodology. And specifically myself, I would be interested to see after 10 years, for example, how the pattern of use of those technologies, private technologies, have changed. And the reusable methodology can be used across other types of technology use as well, or more specific to a context of use. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.